There are marriages that end with screaming and others that end with silence. Mine was dying quietly, and that almost killed me. By our 9th year together, Magnus no longer looked at me when he spoke. His eyes slid past mine, toward his phone, his laptop, the future he was climbing toward without me. I learned to measure my worth in pauses, how long it took him to answer, how often he sighed when I asked something small. "Can you be quick?" he'd say, already half gone. "I have a call." I told myself this was success, that love simply learned to stand still while ambition ran ahead. But at night, when the apartment finally exhaled, the loneliness would press so hard on my chest, I thought it might crack my ribs. That was when I found it, the ad. Learn Norwegian in 15 minutes a day. My heart stuttered. Once upon a time, knowing Norwegian was my dream. Back when I believed dreams could belong to me. Magnus had laughed when I mentioned it years ago. Why waste time on something so impractical, Charlotte? So I downloaded the app like a thief. I studied in the bathroom with the shower running so he wouldn't hear my pronunciation. I whispered verbs into my pillow. I watched Norwegian news with headphones, tears blurring the subtitles when the words came back to me too easily, as if they had been waiting. One night, Magnus glanced at my phone. "What are you always listening to?" he asked. "Podcasts," I said quickly. He nodded, disinterested, dismissed. That hurt more than suspicion ever could. Weeks passed, then months. The language unfolded inside me, clean, sharp, honest. While Magnus grew distant, I grew fluent. I didn't plan revenge. I didn't plan anything. I just wanted one thing that was mine. But as the words settled into my bones, something shifted. A quiet certainty, a feeling I hadn't known in years. I wasn't disappearing. I was preparing. I thought learning a language would save me from loneliness. I didn't know it was about to expose everything. Magnus told me about the dinner the way someone assigns a task to furniture. "Wear the navy dress," he said, not looking up from his phone. "Nothing flashy. Alfred is traditional." I waited for more. There was nothing. At the restaurant, everything gleamed. Glass walls, low golden light, the quiet confidence of money. Alfred stood when we approached, tall and composed, his eyes observant in a way that made my spine straighten. Magnus took control immediately. They switched to Norwegian before the menus even opened. I became invisible on cue. I smiled when expected. I folded my hands. I nodded at jokes I wasn't supposed to understand. My heartbeat stayed steady, until Alfred glanced at me and asked, in Norwegian, what I did. Magnus answered before I could even inhale. "She works in marketing," he said lightly, "but it's more of a hobby, keeps her busy." The word hobby cut deeper than shouting ever could. I stared at my plate, afraid my face would betray me. 9 years of work, of effort, reduced to decoration. Magnus went on, relaxed now, too relaxed. "She's not really ambitious. I prefer it that way." Alfred's smile faltered, just for a second. His eyes lifted to mine, searching. I met his gaze, and in that instant, something passed between us. Recognition, understanding. I swallowed the ache in my throat and smiled again. Magnus had no idea. They thought I was silent. They didn't know I was listening to everything. By the second glass of wine, Magnus forgot I existed. That was when the truth came out. His Norwegian grew looser, louder, laced with confidence and carelessness. He leaned back, smiling like a man auditioning for admiration, and began reshaping reality in front of Alfred. Projects he barely touched became his vision. Team successes became his leadership. I listened, perfectly still. Then Alfred mentioned relocation, hypothetically. Magnus laughed. "If the opportunity is right, I'll move," he said in Norwegian. "Of course, without the burden, without my wife, without me." My fingers tightened around my glass. He continued, casual now, cruel without effort. "I've already started preparing financially. Separate accounts, offshore. You can't build an empire tied to sentiment." Alfred's fork paused midair, and then, like a knife slipped between ribs, came her name. "Sabrina, she is a slim, beautiful model," Magnus said softly, almost fondly. "She understands ambition. We've been dating for 8 months now. She's so passionate in bed. 8 months. I'll handle the Charlotte situation soon," he added. "She wouldn't cope with my future anyway." My vision blurred. I focused on breathing. In, Out, smile. Alfred shifted, uncomfortable, redirecting the conversation, but the damage was done. Magnus had bared everything, convinced I was deaf. When Alfred finally looked at me, his eyes were no longer polite. They were gentle. I realized then, this dinner wasn't a negotiation. It was a confession, and I was the only one who heard it all. That night, my marriage didn't break, it was exposed. The door barely closed behind us before I picked up my phone. "Spencer," I said when he answered. My voice didn't shake. That scared me more than tears. "I need you in the morning." That night, I didn't sleep. I listened. I listened to Magnus breathing beside me, calm and careless, while my mind replayed every Norwegian word he thought I hadn't understood. By morning, grief hardened into precision. Spencer met me in his office before sunrise. He didn't interrupt once. When I finished, he leaned back slowly. "Charlotte," he said, carefully, "this isn't just a divorce. This is misconduct." That was when the hunt began. While Magnus worked late, always late, I searched drawers, files, passwords he never bothered to change because he never imagined I'd look. Bank statements whispered betrayal, transfers overseas, properties registered to shell companies, emails, printed, arrogant, damning, and Sabrina. Her name appeared everywhere. Not just desire, planning, futures drawn without me in them. One message broke me open. "Once I resolve the Charlotte situation, we can stop hiding." The Charlotte situation. I sat on the floor and cried silently, my hands pressed to my mouth like a child hiding from thunder. Then I stood up. Divorce papers were filed. Evidence of financial irregularities and fraud has been presented to Magnus Management. Magnus's company launched an investigation within days. Administrative leave came first, then dismissal. When Magnus finally asked, confused and furious, "What did you do?" I answered calmly in Norwegian. "I heard everything at dinner. You didn't realize I knew the language. Evidence doesn't scream. It accumulates until silence becomes undeniable." The divorce ended not with shouting, but with a quiet finality. Papers signed, assets divided, accounts disclosed. Magnus had vanished into consequences he never imagined, leaving behind only the echo of his arrogance. 2 months later, my inbox chimed. An email from Alfred. "Charlotte," it read, "we are opening a US office. I need someone who understands both markets." My fingers trembled as I typed back, "I'm listening." At the interview, I spoke Norwegian from the first word. Alfred's eyes widened, then softened. "I knew," he said quietly, almost with amusement. "At the dinner, I saw it in your eyes." I smiled, steady and confident, the woman I had hidden for 9 years finally stepping forward. The job was more than a title, it was proof. Senior Marketing Director, International Travel, respect earned, not granted. Every strategy I led, every campaign I launched, was a reminder. I was no longer an accessory. I existed in the light fully. Years later, when Magnus emailed with apologies, I didn't respond. Some chapters are better left closed. I still speak Norwegian daily now, for pleasure, for mastery, for me. That language, the one I learned in secret, had saved me. It rebuilt me. It gave me voice. Result: sometimes the world underestimates the quietest voices, until they speak, and everything listens.
Friends, what do you think of this story? Write your opinion in the comments. Would you like more stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button so you don't miss any videos. See you tomorrow.